For coming to today's workshop. Our special thanks go to CALICO for hosting this and Esther for her work behind the scenes. So I will start sharing first, then Jonathan will do the demo. And today we're going to talk about AI-supported language learning. So by using the case of Luduan.ai, which has been developed by me and Jonathan and other team members for about roughly a year and 6 months. So first, I want to say that the date actually was not randomly picked. So we would like to pay tribute to Google, not for a lot of legal issues, but for their contributions to large language models in general. And for some reason, as you can see that I just got a smash up of Google. Typically, they would like to celebrate their birthday with a very nice doodle, but for some reason didn't do it for this year. Maybe because they're losing the game in LLM. I'm just kidding. Okay. Okay, so this is a roadmap of today's workshop. First, I will spend about 10 minutes talking about problem formulation. There are a lot of issues about using the AI, whether AI, generative AI. So here we're not specified as generative AI because there is no legal definition of AI. So whether AI is a foe or a friend. So then Jonathan will showcase all the major functions of Luduan.ai. So basically, we're using kind of like a cutting edge technology of generative AI. And so that's people can see what generative AI can help us to actually improve our teaching and learning of foreign languages in general. So then I will wrap up and leave some time to take questions from the audience. So the first thing I want to say that AI actually is not new, quite new. It's a not new concept. So the first use of AI as a term actually was created by, so actually was happening in 1955 when John McCarthy and his team was actually drafting a proposal for 1956 summer camp at Datamouse. So I will use 1955 because you can actually find the proposal. Proposal was done in 1955. A lot of people would refer it to 1956, which is totally wrong. But we're interested in something that is directly related to linguistics or language teaching. So as we can see that natural language processing as a field actually started in 1940s. And in specific, if you're interested in neural network models, then actually that was started in 1943. But now we have this kind of craze for large language models, not just because in late 2022, when OpenAI released ChatGPT. But again, so I would like to trace back the origin to a very important paper called Attention is All You Need. I do not recommend that you read a paper because the paper is very abstract. But again, so this is actually the starting point of, we call it the transformer as a foundation model, which has been used by major large language models. Again, so this team is from Google. This is why at the beginning I said we would like to pay tribute to Google. So this is kind of a recent news. I want to give you kind of like a perspective of the development. So this is information from Hugging Face, one of the major hosting website of open source models. As you can see that, so the industry actually is developing very fast. So this is from this year's development, roughly from like 30,000, 30-ish, 33,000-ish models to over 114,000 models. This is actually very crazy. And because of this kind of crazy development, we also encounter a lot of issues. So the major issues we encounter, as you can see, they're actually highlighted by Science and Nature. So Science actually last year published an editorial saying that ChatGPT is fun, but not an author. So the whole idea is that they don't want you to actually use generative AI, especially for publication, because at that time there was a case in which some authors would like to list ChatGPT as a co-author, which was rejected immediately. But on the opposite side, very interesting, about like 2 weeks later, and Nature published a very interesting paper about like the 5 priorities for research, I would say, in the age of generative AI. But both journals actually take different stands and with very solid foundation. I would say that in the future we will see more people who would like to embrace the we call it the advantages of using generative AI. I would just say because we have Excel, then we don't have to draft a lot of diagrams. By using our hands. So, and all this diagram generated by Excel spreadsheets actually are accepted by major journals. But again, so in the future, I would say that the journals will be more open to the use of generated AI, with, of course, with a lot of I would say restrictions for sure. But what does that mean to education or language education in general? I just want to kind of highlighted this one. Elon Musk, actually. So the Elon Musk response is very interesting. So this is a new world, goodbye homework. The whole idea is that if we allow students to use generative AI, such as ChatGPT or any other models, and there's a case that the students would solely rely on the information generated by machines to answer questions. This is not like 100% true, but again, so there's a tendency that more and more people would like to use large language models to solve information-based problems. But in fact, when we talk about artificial intelligence, people oftentimes talk about two types of intelligence. We call it crystallized intelligence, which is basically about information and knowledge. Whereas there's another type of intelligence we call the fluid intelligence. That's your ability to use information to solve real-time issues. At the stage of the development of generative AI today, I would say that ChatGPT actually is capable of answering most of the questions or information-based questions. And based on that, I would add another one, say about textbooks. So textbooks in the future, I think solely information-based textbooks could be useless because with generative AI, we can actually easily achieve what we call the personalized or individualized learning. That means for language instructors in specific, we have to develop, I would say, more kind of personalized materials for each student or for each class. But in specific, I want to say that what are the kind of issues we have as language instructors or students first, sorry. So basically we see limitations. As a student, probably you will have limited in-class instruction, limited educational resources like textbooks and other things, limited help from your instructors, and limited opportunity to practice the target language after class. Even if you have like foreign language tables, you will not be able to go there every day, right? And the last one is limited individualized learning paths. I think the last one is very important because we want to have more individualized kind of guidance in terms of learning. But again, so unfortunately, we don't have enough resources to do that. And from a teacher's perspective, again, so we are facing some limitations. So we don't have unlimited time to teach a class. We have limited educational resources, learning materials. Oftentimes textbooks are not always on time because the development of a textbook oftentimes will take a few months at least. And also we have limited flexibility to revise and develop courses. For example, last semester I taught a course called Digital News Reading in Chinese. If I want to teach it again, so basically I have to use completely new materials in our class, which actually is a bit of a burden for me to develop new courses. But again, by using generative AI, so I can actually have more flexibilities in terms of developing more courses. And also, as instructors, we have limited opportunities to learn new skills. So as an instructor, probably I don't want to spend a lot of time developing new textbooks or spending new time to know different types of software that can make my job a little easier. And the last one is really about resources to address individual differences. As we all know that teachers will not be able to actually spend enough time on every single student. And it's literally impossible for us to address individual differences. Here means like there are cognitive differences in learning. For example, a lot of students have a very high level of foreign language anxiety. They don't want to speak at class, especially in front of a group of students. But again, so if you use generative AI later, Jonathan is going to show us how you can actually have a very good interaction with a machine so that will help you to build your confidence in terms of speaking in front of a large group. So so now I will just pass the baton to Jonathan. So he will showcase all the major functions of Luduan. Jonathan, I'll stop share.
Yeah, I think if you stop sharing, perfect, then I can start sharing. Okay. Perfect. Okay, you can see? Great. Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Jonathan. Like Professor Zhao said, I'm a student currently at Brown doing my master's, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Luduan. So today I'm going to walk us through all of the core features that we offer, both from the teacher's perspective and from the student's perspective. So right now we're inside of a teacher's account. And really the reason I'm making this distinction is just because there's a couple of places where it's slightly different. Nothing surprising, just students can't create classes, teachers create classes, things like that. So we're going to look at what the workflow might look like from the teacher's perspective of creating and managing classes, creating content, etc. So first things first, when I logged in, it put me into this dashboard where I can create a class. I can also fetch classes directly from Canvas if I want to just get the class titles that I'm teaching this semester. So creating a class, very easy. All I have to do is just type in the name. And once I create it, then it gives me a class code that our students would use to join the class. Going down, I've created two just example classes for us here, Advanced Spanish and Beginner Spanish. And you can see the names of the assignments, and no students have taken these assignments, of course, I've just created them. So if we now go into assignments, we can view all of the different assignments that we've created. So in Beginner Spanish and Advanced Spanish, I have created two reading assignments. And within Luduan, we cover all of the linguistic subskills. So there's assignment types for reading, speaking, writing, and listening. And so a reading assignment, as you might expect, is going to involve reading a short or slightly longer passage and answering some questions. And as we'll see in a little bit, teachers have full control over these questions and the reading that the student is doing. So let's go into create a new reading. So there's two different primary types of reading, new reading and existing reading. New reading is, as one might expect, generating a new reading. So it's using the large language model to create a new reading based on various inputs. So for instance, language, we have almost 20 languages. All of the really commonly taught languages that professors we've talked to are covered. So if I were to select something like Spanish, then standard, you can select the CEFR or ACTFL. So I think most people are probably using ACTFL. Then we can select how difficult it should be. You can select the grade level, which that doesn't directly correlate to the difficulty of the article, but the content of the article, the appropriateness of the article, because our platform is accessible to students of all ages and teachers of students of all ages. And so even though they might be a high level in their target language, naturally you need to filter and kind of adjust the way that it's going to talk about certain topics for younger audiences. But let's keep it college student. Topic can be anything you want. We could try travel. Word list, you can enter as many words as you'd like, and it will try its best to incorporate all of your target words into the passage that it's going to generate. So we can select the length, I'll keep it at very short, and we can see what it generates. So you can see that was very, very fast. So as a teacher now, we can view this, and there's a couple of things we can do. So first and foremost, as a teacher, we might be considering what words our students wouldn't know, right? So we can look at that and we can highlight any of the words that we think that the students wouldn't know. So maybe they don't know playas. So I can highlight it. Immediately I'm giving a translation as well as, if applicable, the romanization. I can listen to an audio, which might not be as commonly used by a teacher, but of course for a student, that's going to be exceptionally useful. I can now, I'll just pick one more word. So if I go and generate PowerPoint, it will actually go and create a PowerPoint presentation. Sorry, I think I might just be sharing my Google Chrome. I'll share the desktop. So it goes and actually creates a PowerPoint presentation, which has added the, sorry, can you see my screen? Sorry, I think I might have messed that up when I switched it over. Okay. Okay, it should be good now. So it's gone and created a PowerPoint presentation with example sentences as well as a definition. I can also download words, which will take all of the different words that I've selected and their translation and romanization if applicable, and output it to a text file that the students could directly input into something like Quizlet or any other tool really that they want to use. In the event that I was using a language that doesn't use the Latin alphabet, I could add romanization. I can regenerate the article, adjusting the difficulty, and finally, I can create a quiz. So creating a quiz is the core aspect of the experience of creating a reading assignment for a teacher, because what I do is I tell it I want to create a quiz, and it's going to go and based on the contents of the article or the words that I highlighted, it's going to generate a quiz. And so it has created this. That doesn't mean I necessarily have to use this exact quiz. What I can do here is I can actually individually edit any of the questions, any of the options. I can edit the article itself as well. So that gives me complete control as a teacher. But first and foremost, it's giving me a very strong first or even final draft of what an assignment might look like. So you might look at its output and be completely happy and assign this. You also might want to tweak it a little bit. Either way, it's saving you a significant amount of time because it's gone and created this assignment. So now if we create the assignment, we can select a class, we can give it a name, select what time it's due, and any student who enters our class will be able to view the assignment now. Our other type of new reading is dialogue. So a dialogue is going to be comparable to something that you might find in a textbook, introducing a new topic as a dialogue between a couple of different speakers. So we could do something, we can change the language here. Let's do French this time. We could say that we would like a dialogue at the Eiffel Tower between a tour guide and a tourist getting a tour. In the same way, we can select our standard. This time I'll use CEFR, and we can generate a dialogue. And so what this is going to do is go and create a dialogue very similar in format to something that you might expect from a traditional textbook. The difference, of course, being that we have complete control over the topic, the content, the difficulty, etc. So it's created this. We can also listen to it. Let me go ahead and share my sound so we can listen to a second of that.
Bonjour. Est-ce que cette tour est vraiment haute?
So we immediately get an audio for any article that's generated. So that means that a student can listen to any article they generate, as well as a teacher could potentially download this, use it in class, etc. Beyond that, we also have another type of reading assignment, the existing article type. So existing article is what you would use in the event that you have something you've already written for the class, perhaps in a previous year, or perhaps you come across like a news article, something like that, then you can directly input it into this box. And so custom is what you would use in the event that you want to directly input exactly what you have seen. So you might have an assignment and want to upload it. In the event that you want to adjust the difficulty, that would be through paraphrase. And so if I were to go to something like New York Times in Chinese, for instance, I'm trying to read this just as a student or as a teacher. So for example, in something like a digital news reading class, like this is the kind of thing where a teacher might want to put it in here. They're going to assign this article. They have permission to use this article. Then they're going to put it in here, but maybe this is a bit above the student's level in Chinese still, because really at like an advanced level class in a university setting, they might still be struggling a little bit with some of the more news kind of language. So we can do is we go in there and choose the language, then we adjust the difficulty. So what it's going to do here is it's going to go and adjust the difficulty based on vocabulary, based on grammar, etc. You can further refine it here with the make easier or make harder. And just like with the other reading assignments, you can go and create a quiz here. So we can really, any reading you can use. So whether that means you're generating a new reading or you're bringing something that you already want to assign, no matter what, you are able to create an assignment for your student that's going to be appropriate for their level. And as we'll see in a few moments, is going to have all of the tools that they would need to properly read the article. So I'm actually going to create a quiz here as well, just because when we switch to the student role, I would like to show the romanization feature. But what this really does is it means that you do not have any limits in terms of the type of things that you can work with in your class, because really a concern that we've heard in talking to a lot of teachers is they have content that they want to assign that is not at the right difficulty level, or students are interested in a certain topic and there's no readings for them, right? There's just a lot of topics, no matter how many books there are, there's a lot of topics that there's no level appropriate materials in a target language for, right? So now if we go and look at this, so someone asked in the chat if we can edit the document created. We've already answered that, but just to show how that actually works. So this, you have to create a quiz first because that's part of the process of creating an assignment. And then after that, you can then go and edit this article however you'd like. You can edit any of the questions. So you have full control over that. So I'll create an assignment and I'll just assign it to a Spanish class. But yes, I am aware that this is in fact not a Spanish appropriate assignment. So now if we go to the next kind of mode within the platform, that's going to be the writing assignment. So as a teacher, what we're seeing here is the window that allows us to set up a writing assignment for our students. And so what differentiates Luduan's writing mode from other platforms is that the AI is not going to do the writing for you. That is absolutely not the goal of the platform. Instead, the AI is going to cooperate with you to encourage you to improve your writing. And so we can set up an assignment now, and once we switch to the student, we can see what it looks like for the student. But just know that the essence of it is that we're viewing AI as a means for you to improve your language skills, not to just be a ghostwriter for you. And so we can set something up. And I'll say example writing. So of course I can select language here as well. And after that, I can assign it to a class. So great. Now, oops, I think I'm sorry. I think I might have forgotten to select the class. Okay, fantastic. Moving on to the next mode of the platform is our speaking assignments. So like Professor Xiao was saying earlier, with Luduan's speaking assignments, what you're really providing your students with is a way to conquer that foreign language anxiety and allow them to explore topics that they personally find interesting So we have two modes within the speaking assignments. There's basic chat and there's role playing. So basic chat is exactly what it sounds like. So you can choose the target language. Then after that, you can assign it to your students. So if I wanted the students to practice, say, Spanish, I can pick the standard and I can go and assign this to the students. And what it allows them to do is ask their kind of questions. So we can pop into it here. So it looks like this. You can see it just said that I'd like to practice my Spanish. As with the other things, you can listen to any of them. So we can see what it has to say.
Claro, me encantaría ayudarte a practicar tu español.
I can ask it questions. I can ask it questions in any language I would like, but it's going to do its best to keep us in the language that I'm practicing. This matters because if a student is forced to only use their target language to ask questions, that's not exactly going to be very good for their foreign language anxiety, right? Especially if they're at a lower level, they might ask a clumsy kind of half Spanish, half English question, right? So it's working on that, but what they're going to get is all Spanish back. And so they could, of course, ask for a clarification, a translation, etc. But it's really putting them in this mode where they're talking and practicing their target language. Where the speaking assignment really gets interesting, though, is the role-playing mode. So in the role-playing mode, we have a variety of parameters that you can set up that will create a speaker or kind of a conversation partner for you, talking about anything that you'd like. So this is 100% customizable. You can enter anything you'd like. We also have some presets that are just really good scenarios. So market, for instance, is buying a t-shirt. It's a little too expensive, and I want to haggle. So I can choose the price, or I can choose the language for that. I go into it. Another thing that we have in this chat mode that's really important is the speaking. So it'll actually do speech recognition. So let me demonstrate that. So a mí me gusta esta camiseta, pero pienso que es un poquito demasiado. So you can see it. You can see it renders everything that I'm saying. I can do this in any of our languages. So you can see there's a wide range there, which means that a student can really consider what scenario they want to practice using a language in, right? Because for a lot of students, they might really just be interested in getting better at ordering in their target language so that they can go to a restaurant and try ordering, or talk about their favorite hobbies or something like that. And we'll get into this a bit more later, but what this is really providing is absolute individualized content, right? Because a teacher is never going to be able to talk to students about all of the different things that they personally find interesting. So what this provides is kind of a supplement that then a student can think about, well, why am I studying this language? What do I want to talk about? Like, I find that textbook stuff really boring. What I want to be talking about is video games in Italian, right? Like, your teacher's probably not going to take the time to sit down and talk about your favorite video games in Italian, but with our platform, you can spend as much time. Question in the chat is, so it can be set on the student side, but it's also available on set on the teacher side, but it's also available on the student side. Yes, exactly. So we'll see when we go into the student view on things, but any of these modes are accessible to students at all times. So that means that the teachers have the ability to create any of these assignments, but also students have full ability in their free time to use any of the different assignment types to practice anything they'd like. So now if we are to go into listening assignment, the options are similar to the reading assignments. The key difference is there's a couple of extra features that are added to make it slightly more focused on listening. So if I were to go into, say, German, and I would like an article about pets, and it's going to be at an A1 level, so quite low. So what it does is it adds this box so that a student would see this or a student would not be presented with the article and would instead want to listen to it. And so what that means is that we're kind of encouraging the students to first practice their listening skills and then maybe go back and read the article. So one more or two more things that I'd like to show from the teacher perspective, and then we'll go in as a student and see what that looks like. So as a teacher, we can also create a placement test, which is a pretty revolutionary and new feature that we've pretty recently added to Luduan, is fully adaptive placement tests. And so what that means is you don't have to spend the time to, first off, you don't have to spend the time to sit and grade a placement test. It's fully automated. Second off, for the students, this is a complete win, because if you're an intermediate Chinese student, it's very discouraging to see the advanced questions on the test when you're not even close to that level yet. So in a lot of schools' cases, they have one test that they give to weed students kind of out based on their level, right? They would have levels at a bunch of, or questions at a bunch of different levels. What this allows you to do is go in and create this fully adaptive placement test. And so I have prepared one here in Excel. So all you need is the question, the options, and the correct option. So you can see I have 3 different levels here. This is fully customizable based on your individual school setup. So that might mean that you have a different level for every semester or every year. However it works, all you need to do as a teacher is use our format for your Excel spreadsheet, go in and create these questions, write the options, write the correct option, write the level and upload it. And now you're able to assign this to any student. And what it does in terms of the adaptiveness is, like I was saying, it's just not really a good use of time to force students to take questions that they know are far past their level, or it's just clearly they're not there yet. And so what this does is it looks at the student's performance as they're going and determines whether or not they should proceed. Similar to something like the GRE, it's going to decide the questions based on the student's performance, which means that for a lower level student, they might get told that they should take the beginner class very quickly. So it's going to save a lot of time. It's also randomized. So if you go and create, say, 50 would be like a good starting number, I would say, for each level, if possible. If you have 50 questions for each of your levels, which can come directly from the textbook or whatever else you want, it's going to randomize it, which questions are shown in what order each time. So that makes it harder to cheat as well. So I will go and assign this. So I can go in and I can view my placement tests. Then I can either add students based on the class, or I can add individual students. Either way is totally fine. So I'll just add it to beginner Spanish. Great. Okay, one last thing that I want to introduce, and then I'll come back to, is this analytics tab here. So right now it's going to be plain because we haven't taken any assignments as a student. But what we can do after we take the student assignments is go back and look at that. So if I now go in as a student, so I can see those 2 classes, the beginner Spanish and the advanced Spanish. If I go to my assignments, I can see those right here. So if I were to, for instance, go and look at this family assignment, so what I can see here is the text. I also have an assignment timer. I can highlight any of the words that I don't know. So maybe I don't know what cumpleaños means. I can listen to it. Sorry, I think it might have played really quietly. Let me see. That's weird. I can hear it, but is Zoom capturing the audio? Okay. Wait, I have one person nodding, one person shaking their head. Okay. Moving forward, so I can listen to the audio
La
here.
familia es muy importante. En una familia hay padres,
Oh,
hermanos y a
okay,
veces
perfect.
abuelos. Los padres ayudan a los hijos. Los hermanos juegan.
So I can listen to it. I can adjust the speed as well. because a student might first want to try listening to it a little slower, then listening to it again. I can go back and forth on the sentences to listen sentence by sentence. Moving on to the actual the quiz component, I can choose whether or not I want to see these questions as the student, in case I want to get just like a little additional practice, focus on the listening. Totally up to me. I can, of course, as I said, listen to any of these. Now, if I go and I just kind of randomly choose some options, so we can see. So I did not do so well on this assignment. So as it is right now, your students might be tempted to send an angry email or something along those lines. But what we provide is it will take all of their quiz questions and answers and directly put it into our chatbot so that they can start talking to it. And what it's going to do is it's going to give them a question by question breakdown of what they missed and why, as well as tips on how to improve for next time. Sorry, I can make it a little bigger. So you can see, right, so it'll actually explain like what maybe verbs I mixed up, something like that. And we're not guaranteeing that this is going to kind of take out the need for you to explain things to your students, but what it is going to catch, we've seen, is a lot of the basic grammar questions that teachers are getting asked a lot. So the sort of, well, I don't understand why I got that wrong. Well, it's because you didn't conjugate the verb right? Those kinds of questions that students might currently be asking kind of en masse are now going to be answered instead by Luduan. They can also ask any follow-up questions that they have, right? So I might say something like, okay, so it mentioned that juegan is play, not travel. So I might say, how do I conjugate jugar? In the present tense. So, right, it will come back, give them a conjugation table. It explains the stem change that applies in this particular verb. So all of this is really setting students up to actually make use of the quiz as a learning opportunity and to come to class ready to discuss maybe the quiz contents or the reading that the teacher assigned or any of that. So we can return home. So looking at our other assignments, so we had that example writing assignment. So you can see it here. I'm just going to put in just an example piece I wrote. So I have an example piece in Spanish here with some grammar mistakes. So I can save a draft here. I can also get feedback. So what it's going to do with this feedback is it's going to actually look at it and consider suggestions that it might make to me, but it's not going to directly tell me how to change things. It's going to propose a couple of possible ways that I could say something, right? So in this case, the student has written con mi amigos, right? The mi is a possessive, it's an adjective that indicates possessive, or anyways, it's possessive. So I need to actually conjugate that based on the fact that the noun is plural. So it's not going to directly say it should be con mis amigos. It's going to present three options, which means that the student needs to actually think about what it might be. And to kind of gamify it, we have a score aspect here where they are going to get points based on how quickly they're able to sort of work towards the correct answer and the correct way to revise their work. You can also see it gives suggestions based on discourse organization. So once they're done with that, once they've edited it and kind of improved their essay, they're able to finalize essay, which is going to send their teacher a PDF of where they started and where they ended up and all of the drafts in between. So that means that as a teacher, you can be confident that your student is using the AI as a way to improve their writing, but not to replace them as a writer. It's going to give them nudges in the right direction and give them, ideas and pointers on sort of what they might need to work on, but it's not going to just do it for them. And you can see their process of improving their writing. So beyond that, we also have so these are the kind of other assignments. That's right. I wanted to show in the case of like the New York Times article. So this is an article in Chinese. So if I were to highlight 总统, for instance, this word president, it's going to actually give me the romanization. So in Chinese, it's pinyin. In any of the other non-Latin alphabet languages, it's going to give the appropriate romanization. Of course, I can listen to this as well, which is going to be very useful for a student that's learning kind of one of these languages that uses a different writing system, is being able to go and see that romanization. And of course, like with the other one, the questions are going to be similarly formatted. So one more thing, or kind of analytics, like I mentioned, this is because I'm a student, I'm only going to see my own, but just an example, this is what it's going to look like. So I can see how much time I spent. I can see my new word tolerance, which is essentially how many of the words I'm not highlighting, because of course, in teaching students to get better at reading, you want to improve their ability to parse unknown vocabulary and understand it based on context. And so what this is going to show the student and the teacher is kind of their ability to do that. You can also see the grade. So as a teacher, you would see all of these different things for all of your different students. You would also see the most commonly highlighted words as the teacher, and you can download a PowerPoint of those most commonly highlighted words. So what that means is you might assign a reading assignment to your students that's a little past what you think their difficulty level is. Then you can go and see the words they're really struggling with, instantly get a PowerPoint and come to class and talk about it. So just to show kind of each of the things. So we're a student, but like I was saying, all of these different modes are accessible to students, which means that as a student, I can go in and generate an article about anything I want in within reason, within appropriateness, in any of the languages. So really, this also applies to students who are studying a language, but not necessarily in a class. So maybe I'm taking a Chinese class, but on the side, I also like to do some Italian, and I want to use Luduan to generate a reading in Italian about some Italian food that I really like. That's totally okay. And it's something that we're really encouraging with this platform is students having access to this platform where they can explore their own interests and really learn about the topics that they want to learn, regardless of the language. Like I said as well, you can also do writing assignments on your own. So in the case that maybe it's not an assignment, but I want to go and work on writing an essay or a diary entry or something in my target language, that's also totally okay, and it's going to work the same way. Conversation, same deal. So of course here I'm a student, so and I'm not doing an assignment. So that means that I get to set all of the parameters, right? So I can create exactly the language situation that I want to practice and that I would enjoy practicing. Same with listening and placement tests. Of course, students cannot make their own placement tests, but they can take the placement tests that have been assigned. So we can see my placement test here. So if I were to go and get both of them wrong, it's just going to instantly put me into this first level. And so really what this is doing is if you fully fleshed out your questions, so this is just a toy example because I just have a couple of basic questions in there, but if you fully fleshed it out for each level, you're going to get 10 randomly selected questions from the question set, from the question bank. And so what this would mean is that as a student who maybe I am still pretty low level in my target language, but I want to take the placement test anyway, if I'm not performing very well, I could potentially be done after 10 questions. If I'm a bit better, it's still going to be quite efficient, just because there's not going to be any process of a teacher needing to go and grade these written questions. It's just going to go and grade it and give a recommendation. So if I go and I get these wrong, so it's going to say that I should take level 1. So the teacher, of course, can view that as well. The student can only view their own performance, as one might expect. The teacher can view the performance for all of the different students. Sorry, is it not screen sharing anymore? It is. Wait, Professor Xiao, can you not see my screen? I think. Hold on.
It's still there.
It's still
All
there?
I
Okay.
see is pending placement tests.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I was on that screen. Okay, good. I got scared there that I'd been kind of talking with nothing showing. So this kind of wraps up all of the core functionality. I know there's some questions in the chat that we could potentially address after. Professor Xiao is going to talk a little bit about the theoretical background of the platform. But kind of in summary, all of these sub-skills are covered and have both the ability for teachers to create these assignments as well as students to individually go in there and explore and experiment with the language that they're trying to learn. So now to pass the mic over to Professor Xiao to talk a little bit about kind of what our philosophy is as a platform. Do you want to screen share or do you want me to?
I can screen share.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So I will just use some slides. Okay. Get the slides. Make sure so I'm screen sharing. It's good. Okay.
Yes.
So basically, this is kind of the vision we have. So why we developed that. So basically, we want to address two major things. One is the individual differences in learning. So this is something that AI can do better than individual teachers. Another one is really about the educational equity, because we know that foreign language courses are very expensive. By looking at LMA's, on the other hand, by looking at LMA's report, most of the languages are declining, except for Korean, American Sign Language, and Hebrew. So the whole idea is that by looking at language courses, so textbooks are very expensive. Sometimes a school oftentimes have a language center. It's also very costly. But again, so class size, oftentimes a language class is oftentimes capped at very, I think, roughly at 30, under 30, which means like compared to a large like science class, which is also very costly. So given that kind of situation, I think generative AI can actually help us to address these two issues. And for students, I would just want to highlight that, so generative AI can be a 24/7 language learning assistant. And for teachers, we want to say that AI for you, not instead of you. So basically, we want teachers to use AI as a 24/7 teaching agent. The philosophy behind it, I would say that, so because of AI, we should kind of admit the fact that AI would be part of this journey of learning any target language. In fact, AI in the future will be part of our life. So we want to accept that human AI interaction is inevitable. In that case, the traditional classroom setting where we have learner or learner-teacher interactions could change a lot. So here we want to apply so-called the 80-20 principle, which is in econ. So the idea is that we oftentimes spend 80% of time just to address 20% of issues, whereas there are 20% of factors that can actually generate 80% of results. By using AI, so on both sides, on either the learner side or the teacher side, we can optimize our workflows, and so that we can have a better results in terms of language acquisition in general. So this is the 80-20 principle. Just a little bit more about that. So there's also a transformation of what we're going to teach. So when we talk about critical thinking or creativity, that is certainly part of the 20% of things that we want to teach in a classroom setting. But we don't want to talk about the critical thinking in a very abstract way. So we want to map that onto your cognitive skills by using Bloom's taxonomy. So if we have AI, so we want to say that the learner AI communication can address a lot of lower level critical thinking skills to remember, to understand. We all know that learners oftentimes make repetitive mistakes. And if we have AI, so the AI can help individual learners to actually address these repetitive issues. And to a higher level, I think we want to kind of like restructure our courses to focus on those things that actually are directly related to creativity and critical thinking. So if you look at pyramid, it would be like anything above the apply to all the way to create. It doesn't mean that AI cannot help you to create anything. So the whole idea is that AI make a lot of hallucinations, and those things can only be addressed by human-to-human interaction. So a little bit more about the 80-20 principle. So this is not something we invented. So it has been used for over 100 years in econ. So the idea is that if we want to achieve efficiency, we have to focus on the 20% of the major causes. It doesn't mean that we only spend 20% of our time on that one. But in fact, all these things that cannot be addressed by learner and AI interactions can only be addressed by learner and teacher interactions that have to deal with these 20% most important things. And again, so 80% that includes a lot of repetitive mistakes and other things. Yeah. So in terms of pedagogy, so this is something very interesting I want to share. So what we want to say that, so we want to move away from pedagogy to pedagogy, put the AI there. So this is something I would like to share with everyone today. So actually, the term was used by Clark, not in an official paper, but in one of his posts earlier last year. So the pedagogy and pedagogy, because as I said, there's an exponential development of large language models, and it's kind of hard for us to justify that we will not use AI in the future. And again, so we believe that the generative AI is a disruptive technology, but when we face a disruptive technology, there are only two types of people: slow adapters and quick adapters. I would say the quick adapters will be the 20% of people who will survive, and the other 80% slow adapters, either they have to they will be forced to change, or they may lose their job. In fact, if you look at Goldman Sachs' recent report, because of generative AI, globally, at least 300 billion jobs will be lost within 10 years. So I will just end that, and thank you all for coming to our workshop, and we will have a few minutes to address questions.